Hey everybody, Mitchell here from thehockeyrefbook.com. In this video, we're going to be looking at another example of a potential impact penalty. Now there's two questions to ask when defining an impact penalty. First, does the penalty give the arena a clear definition of what is and is not allowed in the game? Second, can the guilty person learn something from this penalty to avoid it in the future? If you answer yes to both those questions, impact penalty, call it. If you answer no to both these questions, not an impact penalty, don't call it. And if you get one yes and one no, then you need to make a decision about what the game needs in that moment in time. Before I show you today's example, remember that the goal of these videos is to help you learn to communicate using impact penalties. So don't focus on what is and isn't a penalty, but what you're communicating with the penalty that you are calling. Now, here's the example. Okay, so what we just saw was the puck came across the ice from the far side through the slot without any players actually controlling it, and there's two players racing across the ice to battle for the puck. The first player arrives and he attempts to push the puck up the ice towards the blue line, and in doing so he then takes a body check to his chest from the opposing player and he falls backwards into the boards. Do we have an impact penalty here? First question, does a call here tell the arena what is and is not allowed in the game? The answer is yes. Second question, can the guilty player learn something to avoid this penalty again in the future? Again, the answer is yes. So therefore, we have an impact penalty to call for boarding. So in making this call, what is the referee communicating to the arena? The referee is communicating to the arena that a player who is in a defenseless situation and is checked into the boards is going to have a power play called for their team. What can the player who made the check do differently next time to avoid this penalty? They need to identify that their opponent is in a defenseless position, and then they need to adjust their strategy to avoid the check, to reduce the intensity of the check, or to find another way to battle for that puck that does not involve the opponent being thrown into the boards from that defenseless position. Now, what if you called the opposite here and you called no penalty? In this circumstance, you'd be communicating that the player making the check is not responsible for how their opponent falls into the boards for that defenseless position that their opponent was in. However, it's also possible, probably not in this circumstance, but in other circumstances, that a no call would communicate that the player who received the check did have the opportunity to defend themselves and was not in a defenseless position prior to falling into the boards. All of this said, it's very important to remember that when we're making a boarding call, there's a lot of subjectivity that's associated with the decision of whether a player was in a defenseless position or not prior to receiving a check.